Ladies and gentlemen, please notice that exits are conveniently located at the front and rear of this auditorium. When leaving the theater, we suggest that the exit at the front of the auditorium will allow you easier access to the parking areas. Thank you.
I don't believe anyone's watching. It says one person watching, and that's me on my laptop. So.
Nice. Well, Butler, as I'm talking to you, well, this is going to be recorded and put out there anyway, so that's fine.
Absolutely.
For those who don't watch the lead up stuff, I'm coming to you from our destroyed basement. You probably saw the commercial we did, or the little thing I did, the little, hey, well, watch our stuff. That's what's going on back there. That's getting fixed in 2 days.
Nice.
The crack in the basement, and then the room will get built out, and then we'll figure out. You know what I was thinking, Butler? The 2 poster cases that I have here that are adjustable, I was thinking about moving them into there so that we can always change right, so that we can always change the poster depending upon what we're doing. So I thought that would be good too, since we both, I'm sure, have a huge collection of posters.
My trunk in my car is just posters.
Yeah. So I mean, I've got posters from the 90s. So I know I have a Clerks poster. I have a Jurassic Park poster. So I have all those Jurassic Park. I know I have several Jurassic Park Lost World posters. So yeah, no. So we've got some good ones that we can shed. So I think having that over there might help us swap it out and stuff. And of course, the one that you want, the Italian Army of Darkness poster, which will go up. So that'll be sweet to see. So yeah. I'm hoping my kid doesn't get scared, but who cares?
Scared of
right, so I guess
abs.
What's up?
Scared of
yeah, exactly. Yeah, who isn't? All right, so why don't you, I guess, kick us off and what we're gonna do and how this is gonna play out.
I don't freaking know.
I'm just trying. I'm giving you. I've talked for 5 minutes.
Yeah. So, if anyone is watching, or for the people watching,
they are watching. Home game edition. Nice.
For those watching after the live stream, or for those watching right now, this is our first episode of Now Showing. That's kind of our own. Oh, I have to turn my lights off too.
Great, good stuff. Bye, Butler. So I'll do it. So this is our first. So we've done a couple Now Showing episodes before, but they were more for. It was a partnership with I can't remember the name of the studio, the production company, excuse me, that asked us to reach out when we were like in the middle of our first couple years, and we did a movie about the Maserati documentary. We did an episode of that, and we did one about aliens. Right,
we did the Wow Signal
alien movie.
Maserati,
Wow Signal. That's right. So, and we call that Forgotten Cinema Now Showing. So we've always talked about doing this when we were doing the main show about watching newer movies and talking about them, but like not so long, maybe like a 20-30 minute show, but not like I'm gone, I've disappeared. Not like the main show, which is we go through all the facts and the numbers and stuff like that. We just kind of talk about our thoughts and stuff like that. But this is different because this is also a combination show, because we're going to do a little bit of Now Showing, and then, as you know, we're coming back for it's season 17 basically, but it'll be our first season of the new reboot, which starts May 1st. But we have yet to pick the films that we're going to cover in those first 13 episodes. So that's going to happen after our our Now Showing episode, and we're going to go. Basically, you're going to see us doing a lot of this. All right, so I want this, and let's do this. We're just going to be picking. So it's fun. And what's funny, Mike, is that our friend Pat Whalen, who I did the Yet Another MCU podcast with, reached out to me and was like, "Are you really doing a live show, or are you like, is it scripted? Like we had picked these already?"
Right.
Live, because he's like, "I've got suggestions." I'm like, "Well, send them." So I try to drop like 10 suggestions into the big list, so you'll see them, and it's always like Pat suggestion. He picked role models. I go, "Pat, we did that." So clearly, big fan of the show. So, but yeah, so I guess we're doing Dune Part 2 because me and you saw it last night, correct?
That is correct. Unless it was some kind of fever dream. I do believe we watched Dune Part 2 last night.
We did not drink the
water of life.
The water of life, the worm piss, the Mountain Dew, whatever it is, that code.
Romulan
what is that
ale?
called? Yeah.
Mountain Dew.
What's the mountain? What is that blue drink called? Because I don't go to
Livewire. I think it's Livewire.
I have no idea.
Well, Baja Blast is also green.
Maybe is that what I'm thinking about? Is that green?
Baja Blast is another type of green, a different color green. I think you're thinking
Yeah,
of
I
Live
don't.
Wire, which is their blue one.
As I don't partake in that. A lot of that. Butler is probably the bigger Taco Bell Mountain Dew guy, right? So that's not really
I don't like
me.
Baja
So,
Blast, but I do like Mountain Dew.
oh really?
And Taco
Oh,
Bell.
interesting.
Yeah, I'm probably the only person I've ever met that doesn't like Baja Blast. It just tastes like
Interesting,
off Mountain Dew.
interesting.
It's not different enough.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
So
hot take right here.
so last night we saw Dune Part 2 in our local IMAX theater. Actually, the place we used to work at, and we were probably with about 50 people, 50, 60
Yeah,
people.
it's a
You
decent
think?
amount of people for a Monday.
All dudes, not all dudes, but it was someone who kept getting up and leaving. She left one time, and I'm like, you didn't go long enough to go to the bathroom. You went to go whatever you went to go do, and then came back because that was fast. But I always love when they apologize. I'm like, it's fine, I get it. Butler picked seats at the end of the row, so this is what we're doing. This is what we're doomed to do.
Thought you liked the end of the row. Well, I mean, it was kind of slim pickings. Everyone picks the middle, which makes sense.
No, I know.
The middle
I
is
know.
the best.
That's why AMC charges those premier prices for those middle
rates.
seats. Yeah, no, screw that. All right, so we never really we kind of talked a little bit about this movie after we watched it. We both enjoyed Dune Part 1. I think I don't know if we'd never really talked about it on the show, but we both liked the movie.
Right, yeah.
What were your like on the drive home? Were you thinking about the movie, or today were you thinking about the film? Like, what were your, I guess, first takes or initial thoughts or whatever?
I was definitely thinking about the show or the movie like all night and all day. I think it
Was it your modern day Empire Strikes Back?
It has appreciated for me over time. I will say, I don't know. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. That's the Dune book behind me, by the way. See that product placement? You're welcome, Frank Herbert.
What is? Isn't he dead?
Yeah, for a while since 1985.
Rough, Butler. Come on, rough.
That's a taller. I mean, to call something an Empire Strikes Back is really kind of like, come on.
It's dumb.
But I will say,
whatever. It's fine.
I mean,
I shouldn't say it's dumb.
Denis Villeneuve, as I've been told, that's how you pronounce it. I always butcher his name. I apologize.
Okay.
His movies are just home run after home run after home run, especially in the sci-fi genre. I've never seen Prisoners.
I was going to say, have you seen all of his films?
Prisoner seems excellent, but it also seems really depressing. So I've seen
it is
great acting from that film in clips, but I don't know if I could watch the whole thing. But I mean, Arrival.
Stop being a baby, just watch
Runner.
it.
Arrival, Blade Runner, obviously, Dune Part 1, now Dune Part 2. I think he's got a great handle on what makes great sci-fi. He's obviously got a great eye for the screen, for cinema. I mean, I think, I just keep thinking that one of the best IMAX movies I've watched, and I think it might be in terms of like
really
for like how like when the sand crawlers are coming through, not sand crawlers, the spice harvesters are going through on the sand, and like you can, and the thumpers are going, you can feel everything that's happening. And there's not one scene that doesn't fill the entire frame, which I love when, Christopher Nolan films that one giant scene in IMAX that, the screen all of a sudden goes, but it's also a little distracting. I think because I've watched so many different IMAX films that I really like when one film fills the screen correctly the way it was meant to.
Was this shot with IMAX cameras? Do you know that offhand?
I believe so.
Okay.
At least I know that IMAX is making a big deal out of it, so I think so.
That's just okay. I'm trying. While you said that, I'm trying to think of IMAX films that we've watched.
It's not going to be Tron, because I'm sure you'll put up Tron, and Tron was the best.
I didn't even think of that, but yes, I really like Tron. But we always talk about the opening of Godzilla when the IMAX the 10:1 comes in, and it's like you hear Godzilla's roar. I like that. I like Ghost Protocol. I like this. I like when Brad Bird does with Ghost Protocol when he's going to walk outside the building for some. I'm talking about Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol, right. And the screen widens out, and then he has to walk on the side of that building in Dubai. I liked that part. I mean, that's fine. It's an epic saga. This is it should fill the screen. It should feel big. So, yeah, that's cool.
But in terms of, I think that the story, it's It is very well told. It's very well done. I think that while you and I say we like the first one, I mean, I'm sure you're a little bit more of a stickler when it comes to, sci-fi, and I'm a little bit more of an apologist. I think um,
Okay.
Dune 1 wasn't perfect. I mean, it was
Sure.
fabulous in terms of adapting the novel. But in terms of a film, I think there were things that I think we talked about briefly: the stilted dialogue, the lack of action, um, the lack of kind of. I mean, it sets up the characters, but it doesn't really have much of a plot yet. I
Mhm.
think that it's all setting the stage, and this one kind of answers it. Has a plot through and through. They've less. I mean, what's uncouth the dialogue? I don't know how to say, like, they speak more like human beings do now. It's not like trying to be like highborn speech, which could be a purposeful choice. Now Paul Atreides in a noble house. He's on his own. He's with the Fremen, so maybe that was on purpose. There's more jokes. It's a little lighter, even though they're dealing with heavy, heavy themes. And I just think it's a better film that's definitely got a bigger budget. There were a couple of scenes in the first one I remember where, like, the flashback to, or when Paul has his dream where he's a Fedaykin and he does a somersault over the soda car, and then all of a sudden his visor pops up and it's like a copy pasted, like, bad Photoshop job of Chalamet on top of this CGI fighter. I thought that every time I see that shot, it's just worse and worse and worse. And I don't think there was any of that in this film. I think you get a shot of Chani doing the kind of the same thing, but it's done much
Mhm.
better and it looks real. It doesn't look as shoddy as in the first one.
Right. I was seeing, like, because you talked about the humor, and I was seeing how there was some criticism for Stilgar being funny, like Javier Bardem's character just kind of being like laughable. People were, like what he was doing, like his whole
Sure, it was definitely
undying
used for
belief in the
comic
yeah.
relief.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to ask you that like you don't get that from in the first film. And so are we to think two things? One, are we to think that we just didn't get enough of Stilgar in the first film to really judge what type of person he was in this film? Or did they purposely write him differently here? I'm because it was a choice. I can't think that they chose to have Bardem play Stilgar the way he played it, not thinking it was funny, or not thinking that he's there to lighten the mood. His undying, unflinching devotion to the prophecy. It comes off fanatical, but it also comes off jokingly fanatical. So I'm wondering if that choice was always that way from when they started writing Dune Part 1, or it's something they did when they started after the first film and they got into Part 2. What do you think there?
You question Stilgar's motives? You must be Lisan al-Gaib. Oh my God, it's prophecy. I don't know. I think it works a bunch of ways. I think having him making fun of it at the beginning makes it kind of worse at the end when you're like,
Mhm.
oh shit, no, that's not good. Stop, Stilgar. That's you're doing bad stuff. I think it adds
Mhm.
to the shock value toward the end of people who maybe don't know the story of Dune and don't know what's going to
Mhm.
happen. I think it adds to that. I think that Stilgar in the first film is very much kind of antagonistic. I think there's hints that he thinks Paul might be the chosen one, but there's not a lot. So I think you have to kind of turn that on its head, because in the story, Stilgar is a mentor to Paul and stuff. So you have to, like, all of a sudden go, okay, well, now he's with you. So now Stilgar is going to believe. I think that's just kind of like what has to happen.
Uh, the Johnny character at the end of the movie, it feels like she's the only one that hasn't bought in now, which I find really, like, really only one person out of the million Fremen don't believe. Like, I mean, obviously it's because she knows him and she's got a connection with him
Right.
emotionally, but I'm just curious why. And this kind of leads me to my next question. What do you think? Are they, like, they end the movie on a shot of her, like she's the final shot of the movie, not him, not what's happening, but her. So what are we supposed to take from that for going into the next film, knowing that the next film is coming? And why is she the only one that doesn't buy into this?
Well, I think, like you said, she knows him. I think that he surrounds himself with his close circle, which are people who now are totally bought into his prophecy. I mean, he kind of is the chosen one. He can do all the things Stigler says. Whether or not he's really a god or not is up for debate. But the fact that he has superpowers, is not up for debate. He's reading those people's mind. It's not a parlor trick anymore. But for Chani, she realizes that now, this colonial outsider has taken control, which is what she didn't want to happen. And that's not how it is in the books. In the books, she's much more on Paul's side. She stays with him. She's his concubine. She becomes his Lady Jessica. Princess Irulan is just kind of there. She does her empress stuff, and Paul is emperor and duke, but he's got Chani. And Chani's who he has kids with. I believe that Chani's who he has kids with. So in this, it's different that she goes off, but you need that kind of person that doesn't buy into it. I think that helps the message of the movie, and I think that Frank Herbert would probably like that, because anybody who says that Paul is a hero, he talks about how beware of sharp-tongued prophets. Like, he talked about how Paul Atreides was kind of his answer to like JFK. People that promise all this stuff but really are kind of shady and be like they're doing it for their own purposes. I think the movie does a good job looking at that and the push and pull of Paul, not wanting to do that. Which from the book, I remember him kind of being a little bit more, all right, this is what I'm going to do to get revenge for my dad. But in this, you get a lot more push and pull from Paul until Paul says it's too late. It's very similar, when people try to make comparisons to things they've seen. I think a lot of modern audiences, I'm surprised no one's made this, is like Doctor Strange with the newest Avengers movie, where he's like only one chance in a million, and it's the crappy choice where a lot of people are going to have to die, but it's the only way to set the course. And I think as people watch these movies, if they do make, Dune 4, 5, 6, and do the books, you're going to see that it's the Bene Gesserit plan is not just like all right, everything's going to be better now. It's going to get a lot worse before things get better because of how bad it gets, to disrupt the status quo. And I think that this movie does a good job of showing, like, not all heroes are heroes. Just because you're rooting for him to do something doesn't necessarily mean it was the right choice or the best choice.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of like what they did with Chani there.
Well, I asked you
this.
this.
Like oh, I love you. Kind of just like a hanger on Chani.
Oh,
it makes her less of that.
True. I think you probably can't have that with modern day audiences, and that's probably not a plot line that's very interesting. So I can concur with that. I asked you this at the movie when it ended. We were sitting in our seats watching all the credits, like good moviegoers too.
I mean, it's a fantastic score too. So
yeah. So I asked you this then, but how do I? You know what? I totally blanked on what I asked you. Dang it! What did I ask you at the end of the? Oh, I know what I asked. Excuse me. His character. I said to you, they set him up to be, because he is. I know the books. And in this movie, they make allusions to that future, but I still don't think they lay it out like it's going to be bad. I think they just say, I think a lot of people will hang on that when he says there's one way to get through this. I think they're going to buy into the fact that maybe that's the good way. Like, if he, at the end of in the third one, becomes somebody of an anti-hero, a bad guy, he can't control what's happening, and he started this and he can't, and you know what I mean? Like, he's not the hero. Do you think audiences will be cool with that? Do you think that that's something that, like, you know what I mean? Like, do you think that's like a turn in a movie, in a motion picture where people have not read the books?
Right.
Do you think that that's going to be as successful as if they go like a more hero route that they would do?
Well, I'm kind of glad that you started down this route, because this is something I did want to bring up as well during this. Is like everybody's praising this movie and like loving this movie, but and no offense to a lot of audiences, and anybody watching Forgotten Cinema obviously is a film lover, so this is not a knock on them, but this is a knock on the general audiences who like watch maybe a couple Marvel movies a year, maybe like the big Tom Cruise movie, and that's it. They're not big moviegoers. There's no chance in hell that they all love this movie as much as they're saying. I think for a lot of people, this movie is very highbrow, and they don't want to seem stupid. And so they're saying, "Oh, I love this movie," but I'm sure no one could tell you what when Paul says send them to paradise. Half these people who love this movie don't understand what he's saying. They don't understand what happened at the end of this film. There's no chance. I worked at the theater for almost 2 decades. You worked there forever. The average moviegoer is dumb. They don't get this movie. There's no way. And then the second movie, when Paul isn't even necessarily the main character in his own movie, I'm super looking forward to it because
I'm talking about the next movie, not the next movie. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because people think this movie is kind of breaking the mold and being a little different. The next movie is going to really, really kind of challenge their perceptions of what a grand epic could be.
Mm-hmm. Well, you hope. We don't know yet.
I would hope he sticks with the source material. I can't imagine they're not going to greenlight his third movie at this point. With all
so you want them to be more on par with what the books are. You don't want them to deviate too much. I mean, I know they do make some deviations, and we talked about that a little bit,
right,
for the sake of the story. But you do want them to follow the books more closely.
Yeah, I mean, the books get weird. The movie's already kind of weird. The books get weirder as they go along, but the second book and the third book aren't too bad. They're not when it gets a little unhinged. Mm-hmm. But I do hope they kind of go that route and maybe change things for the better. Things do get a little muddled and strange as they go, but I think the themes of the book and the overarching storyline, as long as they stick to the main point, I think will be very interesting to see what audiences think of that. But I think that would have to be like, if Denis says, I don't want to make the fourth one, someone else who's an auteur filmmaker who has that kind of grand sci-fi sensibility as well can carry on that torch and make books, 4, 5, and 6, maybe combine them. I don't think it needs a 6 movies series, but I think if they do 4, 5 movies, condense some of the books down,
I can't see them doing that. I can see them doing the trilogy and then moving on. I mean, this movie was so expensive. The next movie is going to be even worse. And they have to make a lot of money to make back that money.
True.
I could see a trilogy, but I can't see them doing beyond. But whatever, maybe a different director, a whole new cast.
I mean, if they do just one more movie, they still don't finish Paul's story quite yet. So they would have to start combining Dune Messiah, which is the next book in the series, and Children of Dune.
Did Austin Butler's character, Fayed Raouf, did I say that right? Fayed Raouf?
Fayed Raouf? I don't know.
Whatever. Does he, spoiler alert, everybody, does he die in this, in the books the way he does here?
Oh yeah, they have a last sort of fight. Yeah.
Because he's like a good character, and then it's just like, oh, he's gone. Like Darth Maul and Phantom Menace.
Well, a lot of people were disappointed he wasn't in the first one because he is in more of the books.
Oh, he's supposed to be in the first one? Oh, okay.
I mean, who knows? The way he cuts it up. I mean, I don't remember. I mean, it was a little while ago. I reread the book. I reread it before the first movie came out. But I don't remember any of the Planet Harkonnen stuff or the Bene Gesserit. Maybe I remember some Bene Gesserit stuff regarding him. I do know he's kind of like the anti-Paul, but I don't remember a lot of that Planet Harkonnen stuff, which I thought was really cool. Like you said, he's a really cool bad guy. I think the first one they wanted to give kind of Batista's Raban a chance to shine, so they could be like, you think he's bad? Now we got a real the opposite of Count Dooku in Star Wars, where it's like, you thought Darth Maul was badass. Wait till you see this 80-year-old man who fences.
Great.
You want to see
this is my Phantom Menace.
You want to see a super zoomed out fight between him and a CGI Yoda?
Oh man, I think I've told this story before, and every time I bring it up, I always like to say it. One of my good friends back in the day, Kevin, rest in peace, man. We watched Attack of the was that was Attack of the Clones,
Attack of the
right?
Clones.
That scene, yeah, we're watching Attack of the Clones in the cinema showcase cinema number 2 in Orange, the second auditorium packed. And when Yoda starts fighting and he flips, I laughed like loud, and I laughed, and I turned to him, and I laughed right in his face, and he gave me the look like he was gonna beat me up, like he was so upset, and I was just like, all right, chill. I thought I was ridiculous, but he was a huge Star Wars guy, and he loved Star Wars. And so it was like his thing. And I remember having conversations with him being like, listen, you can love this stuff. That's fine. That's you're always going to like it. I get it. I get, but I'm not. Like, it's just like, I have problems with stuff. I mean, just like I'll always make excuses, and I'll always love Indiana Jones. I don't care if people hate any of the movies. I mean, I still like them. And I'm unapologetic about that. And I tell people when they're like, "Oh, you think that movie's good?" King Crystal, the Kingdom of Skull. We talked about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. We talked about it all the time. Right. People are just like, I can't believe you like that. I'm like, I'm not fighting you. Listen, I like it. You can hate it. That's fine. I don't care. I still like it. And you can have your opinion. I can still have mine. I don't care. And they don't like that. They're like, well, like, I know you want to argue with me about it, but I'm not going to argue. I
want you to be sad. I want to beat you up about your movie.
I did when I did an episode with the Pint, we did was it Triple T? Was that what it was for?
I think
we did an episode about it. And that I said, okay, John, I said, for that episode, I will produce my my reasoning for everything. I will answer all those questions. So I did it one time. And I came prepared for that. And but that's it. After that, I'm just like, I like it. I don't want to. And yes, I like Dial of Destiny, so I don't want to hear it either. So enough's enough. Done. All right.
I haven't met one person who actually didn't like Dial of Destiny in person. Anyway, I know a lot of people on the internet, but like everyone goes, "Did you watch the Indiana Jones? What did you think?" Yeah, I kind of like. They wait for me to say I liked it, and then they're like, "Yeah, I kind of liked it."
Just like it. Just say you like it. Who cares? Yeah. Anyway, so you said you like this film, but like you haven't really given me something in this film that you really didn't connect with. So you're saying that this film is not that perfect, but this film is basically one of the better films you've seen in quite some time. I'm talking about Dune Part 2. I've taken this tangent back to the Dune Part 2.
In terms of like sci-fi, I don't know if you remember when I saw Blade Runner 2049, like I was like, dude, this movie's so good. And you were like, calm down.
That sounds like me.
For Blade Runner, it was like right away I was like, oh man, this is great. For Dune, because it's long, it's even more heady than Blade Runner. It took me a little while. Like I liked it, but now the more I think about it all day, I'm just like, yes, I really like this film. It's a type of sci-fi that you don't really get ever. I mean, it's really only exists in books. Maybe some video games will do heavy sci-fi, but most of them, don't, by the nature of what they are, can't handle the story like this. I can maybe think of one example of that. And it took 3 or 4 games to make that story. Yeah, I think that this is in a class of its own. I don't think it's fair to compare it against Empire Strikes Back. It's not.
I don't like. I understand why people do that, because it's easy to let people know how much they love it, because they're quoting or they're mentioning they're mentioning a movie that is revered by everybody. I get why you do that, but I won't personally do that. But I understand why people do that, because it's just to let you know, like, listen, this is how much I like this movie.
And I think in terms of like modern blockbusters, I mean, it had the action. I love the way they handled the action. I love the way it was mixed with the story. I absolutely love the cinematography. I think the soundtrack was very, very good. I was listening to it today, actually, while doing some stuff. I think it's a little less out there than the first one, and it's more palatable. It's definitely really, really good. And I think Hans Zimmer just won the Oscar for Oppenheimer. When we're recording this, he just won a couple days ago.
You're right. You're right. Yeah. I should know that. Sorry.
Obviously,
did very well.
Yeah. Obviously, Hans Zimmer knows what he's doing. I think the soundtrack helps. I think, I mean, I really like this movie, but again, I really love sci-fi. So kind of, I'm a little bit more of a sci-fi apologist, because you don't get a lot of space sci-fi anymore. And I mean, I really love space sci-fi. So I don't know what you're a little bit more of a stickler when it comes to stuff like this. You don't have that, like you said with Star Wars, like space sci-fi isn't necessarily the thing where you're gonna hang your hat on and be like, this is it, let's go. What did you think about it?
So when I watched the first film, and we saw it in the theater, I was like, oh, that's good. But then when it was on TV, when it was on HBO Max or it was on HBO, and I would just flip it on, I just watch it, and I would watch a couple stuff, and I kind of like was like, all right, I kind of like this movie a lot. I was into it, I dug it, so I kind of, I wouldn't say, I guess Dune grew on me. I thought Dune Part 1 was a good movie. It was a really good movie. It grew on me more when I was at home watching it. So that's where I took that there. Dune Part 2, we only saw it once. And I really think that one of the reasons we started the podcast, the Forgotten Cinema podcast, not one of the reasons, but one of the reasons why I like doing the podcast is we're able to go revisit films that I maybe saw once or twice and I never saw again, or I never watched again. And, sometimes they don't hold up. Sometimes I'm just like, maybe, I don't know, this doesn't work. Maybe I didn't realize why stuff didn't work. So I think with Dune Part 2, I need to see it again. I do. My first takes were like, it felt like, and these aren't negatives. These are just what my feelings about the film. I'm not trying to be negative.
Okay.
No, because I'm giving you, like, in the first one, it's kind of like an origin story, right?
Sure.
Atreides gets there. Okay. And in the second one, it's almost still like an origin story, because now he has to become part of the Fremen, and now we have a montage of him fighting with the Fremen and stuff like that. So like now we're learning about them. So there was like, I thought it was interesting that you have a sequel to a film that is in essence another origin story a little bit. So you almost had like you're repeating the same storyline, which is I can't think of a movie and a sequel that was like that. I'm not saying I don't like that. I just thought it was very interesting that it's almost like it's very similar to what we just watched. And so I think maybe that helped me get into the movie a little bit more, like, but it was also like Fremen heavy in like the first 45 hour. It was just all for him and the Fremen, and you kind of got bits and pieces. And then all of a sudden the big world stuff started happening, Planet Harkonnen and all that stuff, and all like the politics and the emperor and all that stuff. Then we started getting all that other stuff coming in. So it was almost like there's big chunks. Like the movie was almost put together like chunks of plots and storylines. And I think it was done well, but there's just so much that I want to watch it again to really, really like, just kind of like, okay, how much do I like this film? Like that kind of thing. I'm not ready to be like, this is the best movie of the year or something like that. But I want to see it again, because what I watched, I enjoyed. But I think any movie that you really love or any movie that you really hate, you should watch it more than once, because you just like, you want to know why. Like, why did you love this film so much? And the whole fight at the end is great. The whole battle, even though it's all CGI, that's all done well. The music's done well. When they pop out of the sand, you know what I'm talking about? When they start running, the guys are running away, and the digital Fremen start popping out of the sand.
Very end. Yeah.
Yeah, and they start running. I'm sorry, but that score had to be from Dark Knight. Like that felt like a Dark Knight Rises like moment where it was like boom, 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 and then just come up. I thought that was really good. I enjoyed that.
That's one part of the movie I wasn't a huge fan of.
Oh, really?
When they pop out
only
or
just
because
the end?
How did they get under the sand there?
It doesn't make sense.
Without them seeing them. They're right in front.
There's a couple moments like that, which is why I want to rewatch it. There's a couple moments with the geography of what's happening. I'm just like, that doesn't make. I'm not following that, and it wasn't like that's dumb. It was just that I'm not following how that's happening. I need to see this again. And to be fair, a lot of filmmakers will do stuff like that. They'll piece stuff together. Go back and watch. I just talked about how I love Indiana Jones, but go back and watch some Spielberg stuff where he's done the action. The action sometimes doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Like all of a sudden he's in the woods, and then all of a sudden he's in the desert, like stuff like that. Like it doesn't make sense, but you're into it, so it doesn't matter. So there was stuff like that, like you're talking about. Like, I just didn't understand the geography of like, how did they end up there all of a sudden? Like, why is he there? I don't get that. I thought he was back there. Like, so yes, absolutely, there was stuff like that in this film. That I want to see it again to figure it out.
So before I burned my nerd cred, I said the planet, it's Planet Harkonnen. It's Gidi Prime is the Harkonnen's home planet.
I didn't even call it Planet Harkonnen, dude.
You did call it Planet Harkonnen.
I said Harkonnen. I said the Harkonnen. Nope, I didn't. I knew.
Gidi Prime is their home planet. So
That's your man. You suck.
I've corrected my thing.
Mhm,
The
mhm.
second thing is when you were talking about how it's like two origin stories. Do you think that's kind of similar to how in Star Wars, Luke is kind of the first one is his introduction to the rebellion, and his second one is his introduction to the Jedi?
You mean like when he's with Yoda?
Right.
That stuff in Empire?
Yeah.
I guess, but here's the difference. I still think the Dagobah scenes are boring in Empire.
I forgot you don't like the
They
Dagobah.
bought like listen, and I still think the movie's great, but I always hate that. I'm so bored with those scenes. They bored when I was a kid. They bored me, and when I'm older, I'm like them. Like, get to the action.
What
They
a Yoda hater.
No, I just think they're boring. That's all. It's fine. I want Han Solo and all that stuff. I want the I want the Cloud City fight. I want the
You'll
when you
get
know
the
it's
green
coming.
Muppet and you'll love it.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, I guess you're right. I guess that's your point is valid. Yeah, I
I
think
wasn't
that
trying to invalidate. I just when you were saying it, I was like, that
no,
kind of reminds me of this.
it is.
Yeah.
It is. But I think it's. I think. I think maybe because like I'm thinking of the montage. I'm thinking of just like he's like because it starts right after the first film, and then all of a sudden he's got to learn the Fremen ways, and then they montage it, and he's part of them, and he's building rapport. It's over a long stretch of the movie, so I think that's why I was like, oh, this feels like an origin story. This feels like his origin story in terms of when he becomes part of the Fremen and one of them and stuff like that. So that's that's kind of like where I was at with that. So, but I understand what you're saying. Burning that nerd cred. All right, so I don't want to go too long. We both like the movie. We both talked about. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to bring up, or do you wanted to kind of discuss?
I love how they get rid of the thumpers. Just like it's some advancement.
I think that's everybody says that.
Just all these thumpers are getting lost. Like they've got to have 3D printers in their backpacks. I think I told you in the theater. Like it's so ridiculous, and I mean it's like that in the book too. You never hear them picking the thumpers back up, but
the thumpers are so crucial, but like you think that like those are like a heavily traded commodity amongst the Fremen. You know what I mean? Like if you need a round of thumper, it's like, well, man, there's only one way you're gonna get one. Like they must be like a heavily traded,
you gotta go see Frank
commodity. Yeah, what a thankless job making thumpers that you'll never see again. I mean, never see again. I mean,
it's a job.
Unless they know where those worms crap and they find thumpers in their crap everywhere because
thumpers. The crap is the spice.
Is that really? Oh, you're right.
Spices,
and maybe well, they'll eat anything though. So
that's true.
Do they explain? Not to get off topic, but in the books, do they explain how spice, like how they used it to travel? Like, do they explain that process at all, or they just say spices?
That's one thing the movie doesn't talk about at all. So the movie is definitely like Denis purposely leaves out the Mentats, who's the guy who turns his eyeballs white in the first movie. He survives in the book, and he's just a prisoner of the Harkonnen, so he comes back at the end. Mentats are like living computers because there was a war in their past, which is not too far from our future, where AI took over. So they don't use AI. They have human computers, basically. And then there's spice can really mutate you if you take too much of it and you become a navigator. And these are mutated, disgusting, alien-looking humans. They're basically not human anymore. They're like another species of alien. And the spice opens their mind so much they can read star charts and plot a course through hyperspace where they're not going to hit a rock or an asteroid or a planet. And you need the spice to travel. That's how they do it without AI and stuff. Are these gross, mutated, giant, ugly things. But the movies, I was really hoping to see one in this movie. I totally forgot, which it's to the credit of the movie that I forgot. But I was really looking forward to seeing what they would think those would look like.
So spices like Star Trek's dilithium crystals? Is that what you're telling me?
In a way, but it unlocks people's minds.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And mutates you if you take too much, yeah.
And Arrakis is the only planet that has it.
That has spice because it's the only planet that has sand where sandworms can survive, yeah.
Nobody thought to take a baby sandworm and take it to another planet where there's desert.
They can. They don't survive.
Really?
That's the whole plot of like the upcoming books, because Paul has promised the Fremen, I'm going to turn Dune into a tropical paradise. And you learn what terraforming Arrakis is going to do to the sandworms, which is going to ruin space travel and cause all sorts of problems.
Cool. That's in the next movie, you think? That's what you're saying?
That is not in the next
Or
movie.
that's in the other books.
That's
Okay.
in the
Yeah. Okay.
sequels,
Okay. All right. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So I mean, I think this went well. I like this. I like talking about a newer film, not having us about the facts.
Yeah, it's a little different. I like it.
I know our next one is going to be Frozen Empire, right? We're doing the
Next
Ghostbusters one. Is that
going to
it?
be... No, I think
Or is it Roadhouse?
Roadhouse was going to be our next one, and then Ghostbusters.
Right.
They come out so like close to each other, but I think it'll probably be Roadhouse and then Ghostbusters. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Roadhouse, Ghostbusters.
I think we talked about doing the
Godzilla.
Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Oh, Godzilla. Yep.
Godzilla. And then Planet of the Apes. That'll be Planet of the Apes will be a lead up into a now showing.
Yeah, and we did a episode of Roadhouse for our lead up as well. The Patrick Swayze one, which we already watched and recorded, so that'll be on the Patreon as well. I guess I know we're gonna go into our second set, but why don't you, our selection show, if you will, of season 17. But before we go, why don't you I guess do our little Patreon pitch, and also do the usual stuff that you like to do.
So thank you guys who are Patreons. Thank you guys who are returning viewers who watched our show before we took our little hiatus.
Before I took it, apparently.
Yeah, that's right. It's called controlling the narrative. Field.
Shut up.
Before our rebirth, and thank you for watching to new viewers, because YouTube's kind of new for us. Before we just had the audio, this is all kind of newish, the video stuff. This live stream was available to the public. I think a few of the live streams, the next few live streams are going to be probably at least until we start season 17, which is our next season, May 1st. Just to have people kind of jump on the live streams and see what it's like, see if you like it. If you like it, then once we bring it over to the Patreon, you can join the Patreon tier that has live streams. I believe it's the 3rd tier, and then you can, join in, chat with us. I've got my laptop open here. I'm watching both the StreamYard and YouTube channels, trying to see if anybody's talking to us about what they thought of the movie. And we'll put this episode out probably the next day or the day after for everybody. So if you didn't catch the live stream version of this, you're probably watching the what we've recorded and put out. So thank you for watching that. We got more content coming at you. If you like what you see, join the Patreon. It really helps. A lot of the stuff, we want to keep making this bigger and better. We want to build a community around films in a way that I don't think either of us have really seen online to the degree where we'd like to do it. So if you join, you get into our Discord group. We'll have to talk movies. We do these live streams, all that kind of stuff to help build the community and build the Forgotten Cinema brand through Patreon. And that's all I got. I really want those anti-gravity suits from Dune.
That you have to poop in?
The ones where you could like jump off and then you just slowly go.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'll work on that.
All right. Thanks. So, yeah, that's all I got.
Awesome. Yeah. Sweet. See you around.
I
know we're not going anywhere. I just think, what's up?
Well, we should still do.
Oh, you want me to do?
Because I'm not going to attach the season selection to it. Yeah.
All right. Fine. All right. Okay. So I'm Mike Field.
I'm Mike Butler.
And this has been Forgotten Cinema, now showing Dune Part 2.